So this quarter, winter quarter, I was able to learn a lot about the more of the music from the Romantic era and the Viennese era, thanks to Robert Winter, Professor Robert Winter. I was able to learn a lot. Some of my biggest takeaways, I think, were um, the sonata form. I was really able to understand that. I was able to understand the different sections because it's split into its most basic form would be exposition, development, and then recapitulation. And then inside the exposition, there is the primary area, secondary area, and the closing area. And being able to hear all those different sections, I think, is like I don't think everyone can do that. And in this class, it was really focused, and I'm really thankful that I've been able to um, be able to hear the difference because I think, you know, as I go throughout my career as a musician, it's important to be able to hear those different kinds of things and have a more well-rounded understanding of the music that I'm singing in, the eras that I'm singing in, and this is definitely um, a really important era for opera. Speaking of opera, um, we were able to learn a lot about more operas and the different kinds of operas like opera buffa and opera seria. Opera buffa being an informal or comic, which is its most common is informal or comic, and then seria being more serious and dramatic. And we were able to learn about those different kinds of operas and I knew that there were funny operas and I knew that there were serious operas, but I didn't know what they were called, and so I was able to learn the difference, and I think that's um, really important, especially because that's the field that I want to be going into. We were able to learn about recits versus arias, and recits being more spoken. It's still sung, but more spoken. As if the opera was in Italian, you would say you would sing the words as if you were speaking them, and the arias are more musical. You know, recits being like not the most um, like music like accompanied, and then arias being accompanied by full orchestra. And so I already kind of knew what that was, but being able to walk through it in this class gave me um, a bigger appreciation, I think. Um, Another thing that I was able to appreciate more was the way Mozart was able to connect his songs through text and music. He was able to put them together and make everything make sense. In his song Non So Più from The Marriage of Figaro, um, he was able to do this. He was able to do this because of the words. The words are sung by a teenage boy named Carabino, and one of the lines he says is "Every woman makes my heart pound." And Mozart's able to make this kind of pounding, excited feeling by his fast tempos that he uses, and the fast text that goes by. And he's able to do this, the text and the music, and it sort of mirrors each other and the emotion. I think it's wonderful that what he did. Um, Another thing that I will, take with me is Berlioz. I had no idea about Berlioz's life. I have sung some of his things, but I never knew knew his story, knew his life, and then we were supposed to do this essay on him and read this autobiography, and it was so enlightening. He was such an obsessive person and passionate, and he was obsessed with this one woman, and that came out, and we were able to hear that in his Symphonie Fantastique. And I just think that without being in this class, I wouldn't have been able to understand Berlioz the way that I do now and have the appreciation that I do now. There's this one song that I sing called Villanelle from his song cycle called, what is it called? Uh, it's called something, and it's from his cycle, and the accompaniment is just block chords the entire time. I mean, changing chords, but they're just chords the entire time. And I, after reading about Berlioz, and he was a guitarist, I was able to go back to that song and go, oh my gosh, it's like that because he's a guitar player. So it was it made so much sense to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm able to understand Berlioz's music because I learned about his life, I learned about everything, and it was just so, it was a good moment. I think the last thing that I'm going to take away from this class that has really affected me the most, and not just in the winter quarter, I think is the All Stars, and All Stars being us learning a song from the era or from a certain composer that we've been learning about, and preparing it with a student that, with a peer, and then performing it for peers. I think that it's different just learning about it, like learning about these people, learning about these different things, and then, but it's different going back and actually practicing and performing it. It's so different because one, you're learning about the history, you're reading the books, you get it, you're smart about it, but then it's different when you put it into practice. And I think that's incredibly important, and not something that you find in every class. And I think that that's one of my favorite things and biggest help from this class, and I will always take that with me. So, yay.